The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. Enduring countless hurts from the man, he finally left in utter heartbreak. Watching the empty villa, the man suddenly realized his mistake. Baby, let's get back together. See a paranoid, dominant alpha clash with a cool, stubborn alpha. His name is G-Ran and he's an alpha. Currently surrounded by a group of people, the sound of steady footsteps approaches. A tall figure gradually comes into view. Put the knife down, G-Ran, he shuddered. Yi Linghan is the best alpha in Kyoto. His powerful presence makes G-Ran involuntarily want to submit. Yi Linghan approached G-Ran. Do you really intend to keep fighting with me? I care for you so much, why won't you make even the slightest change for me? G-Ran firmly stated, I am an alpha, ever since I differentiated at 18, I have been a thorough alpha. Yi Linghan righteously said, I'm also doing this for your own good. G-Ran struggled to free himself from his grip for my sake. I used to think that you truly cared for me. For you, even as an alpha, I was willing. But you actually sought out an omega synthesizer, just to leave descendants for the Yi family. Yi Linghan felt somewhat heartbroken. Ran. I've tried my hardest to win your parents' approval for you. How can you doubt me? G-Ran's heart was as cold as a glacial valley. Do you know if the synthesizer causes rejection, I could die? Yi Linghan's face turned displeased. Aren't you warming up to me? If you are, why won't you take the risk for me? There's only a 50% chance of experiencing a rejection reaction. Doesn't that mean there's also a 50% chance of success? G-Ran looked at him. What if I die? Yi Linghan grabbed his shoulders. It won't happen, trust me. G-Ran laughed. Trust him? It was trusting him too much before that led to losing everything. I won't inject the synthesizer. Yi Linghan's gaze turned cold. Ran, don't force me. Yi Linghan lowered his gaze. Inject him with the synthesizer. If he doesn't listen, knock him out and tie him up. G-Ran was shocked again. He couldn't believe the man could be so ruthless. The bodyguard's orders surrounded G-Ran. As an ALF, G-Ran has strong combat abilities, but with more and more bodyguards, he simply can't compete. As the serum is injected into his body, G-Ran lets out a sorrowful roar. Yi Linghan, I hate you. Watching all this indifferently, then hate it is, all because of a man's words. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega, and from then on, he was confined. 3 days later, the boy opened his eyes. He moved his body, in pain, all his joints aching. G-Ran's eyes filled with desolate mist, all brought by the person he once loved the most. Noise came from outside the door. It's been 3 days, why hasn't he woken up? Yi Linghan's furious voice made G-Ran's heart tremble. G-Ran, you're awake. He strode over. He hugged G-Ran tightly and gently kissed his neck. Yi Linghan's brows furrowed as his gaze instantly turned cold. Why is there no scent of pheromones? Still not giving up, Yi Linghan leaned down again to sniff, but there was still nothing. Suddenly, G-Ran started to laugh. Disappointed, aren't you? How could I, an alpha, possibly turn into an omega? Yi Linghan muttered, it must be that the effects of the synthetic haven't kicked in yet. G-Ran gazed at the handsome man before him. Yi Linghan, do you really love me? Yi Linghan was taken aback. G-Ran let out a bitter laugh. He had been deceived by Yi Linghan's face and so-called affection. After so many years of wholehearted devotion, all he got in return was this profound hurt. Suddenly, Yi Linghan became agitated. After all these years together, you still doubt me? What kind of person can I have? Why would I be with you if not for love? You really don't understand. I want you to become an omega so you can rightfully become Madame Yi, not just an unnamed Mr. G. G-Ran looked at him squarely. What if I can't turn into an omega? Yi Linghan held G-Ran tightly in his arms. You won't fail to become one. Trust me. When you become an omega, we can be together legitimately. G-Ran's heart wavered. Perhaps Yi Linghan did love him and had resorted to this scheme just to be with him. 7 days later, the professors at the major research institutions stiffened their spines. Young Master Yi, please be patient. Turning alpha into omega, this kind of experiment, we have never done it before. Failure is common. Yi Linghan's gaze suddenly deepens. You treat this as an experiment? I don't care what methods you use, you must turn G-Ran into an omega. I'll give you a week. If you can't find a solution, all of you can get lost. As soon as Yi Linghan steps out of the research institute, his phone rings. Father, you've been playing around for so many years. Isn't it time to settle down? The family has decided on an arranged marriage with the Gon family. Don't make things difficult for me. Yi Linghan responds in a deep voice, is it if I find someone to bring home, you'll stop bothering me? Then, let's have the arranged marriage. Eventually, the boy turned from alpha to omega. Just when he thought he could be with the man forever, the man is going to marry someone else. After hanging up the phone, Yi Linghan returns to the villa and sees Ji Ran sitting on the sofa reading a book as soon as he opens the door. Ji Ran looks up at him, and that look makes Yi Linghan remember the first time he saw him. Through the crowd, with just one glance, Yi Linghan was moved. But when he got closer, he discovered Ji Ran was an alpha. After much thought, he finally won Ji Ran over. It's not easy to find someone you like. Gender really shouldn't be an obstacle. But gradually, Yi Linghan realized that omegas suit him better. If Ji Ran were an omega, all the problems they faced would be easily solved. Yi Linghan approached Ji Ran. Are you feeling it today? Ji Ran replied, no. Yi Linghan was extremely disappointed. How can you not feel it? If you want an omega that badly, there are plenty out there. Yi Linghan was frustrated. Why do you have to be like this again? If I wanted to find an omega, would I be wasting my time with you? After saying that, he pulled Ji Ran closer. Look at you now, you don't have half the cuteness you used to. Isn't it just about making you an omega? Ji Ran was also furious. Haven't I given enough over these years? Yi Linghan clenched his teeth. Even if you can't become an omega, you're not much different from one. Ji Ran's face was burning with humiliation and pain. With a roar of anger, Ji Ran raised his fist and smashed it towards Yi Linghan. Jiren roared and swung his fist at Yi Linghan, who quickly grabbed his wrist. Am I wrong? So what if you are an alpha? You're just like an omega, besides not having children. Tell me, what's the difference between you and an omega? The pain was too much for Jiren, not just physically but also emotionally. When Jiren woke up, it was already the next morning. Jiren had been in this villa for 3 days. When exactly would this captivity end? What exactly does Yi Linghan think of him? A docile and lovable pet dog? He's not a canary trapped in a cage, he's a thinking person. Suddenly, his gaze sharpened. It's the scent of an omega's pheromones. This scent is coming from his body. He has actually turned into an omega. The first thought that popped into his head was to tell Yi Linghan. If he knew, he would certainly be happy. Although he hated Yi Linghan for turning him into an omega, Jiren didn't want to leave him. Those years of feelings weren't fake. Maybe he could be with Yi Linghan forever. But just as he unlocked his phone, he saw a push notification for a news article. The shocking marriage alliance between the Yi and Gon families, a powerful union. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. He thought he could finally be with a man, but then the man DH with someone else. Ji Ran felt he must be hallucinating. How could Yi Linghan DH? He had said he would only be with him in this lifetime. He must have seen it wrong. Ji Ran kept looking over the news content, finally certain it wasn't a hallucination, not a delusion. Today was the day Yi Linghan and Gon Rui DH. No wonder Yi Linghan hadn't been to the villa recently. It turns out he had a beloved companion. Just now, he even felt happy about becoming an omega and slapped himself hard in anger. He laughed mockingly. No, he couldn't stay here. If the servants in the villa found out he had become an omega, they would definitely tell Yi Linghan. He must escape immediately. If Yi Linghan marked him, he would never be able to escape for the rest of his life. Ji Ran leapt and ran toward the outside of the villa area. The scent of his pheromones was very strong. If this continued, he probably wouldn't last much longer. Several alphas, like wolves that have caught the scent of blood, followed the smell and found Ji Ran, who had already run onto the road. Driven by instinct, they relentlessly pursued Ji Ran. Ji Ran, with a quick move, dashed through the crowd, pulled open the door of a sedan parked by the roadside, dragged the person inside out, started the car, and sped away. He is an alpha, he absolutely cannot be marked by anyone. Ji Ran, relying on his strong willpower, arrived at a clinic. Just as he pushed the door open, he completely lost his strength to stand. Someone supported him. Ji Ran, what's wrong with you? Actually, as soon as Ji Ran entered, he had already smelled the strong scent of pheromones on him. Ji Ran tightly grabbed Sheng Wiking's arm. Brother Sheng, help me, give me an inhibitor. Meanwhile, half an hour before the DH ceremony starts, Yi Linghan was sitting in the lounge, surrounded by makeup artists and stylists. A stylist was adjusting his hairstyle. A mirror was pushed in front of Yi Linghan. Mr. Yi, please have a look, are you satisfied? The man in the mirror looked noble and elegant, but Yi Linghan seemed indifferent to his own styling. He kept his eyes on the phone, guessing that Ji Ran would soon find out about his departure. Let Ji Ran cool off for a few days, and he will naturally realize his value. By then, Ji Ran would beg him to come back as before. At this moment, the phone in the villa rang. Yu, his brow furrowed, quickly answered. Young Master Yi, young Master Ji is missing. The boy was forced to turn from an alpha into an omega to avoid being forcibly marked by the man. The boy could only run away but didn't expect to fall into the man's hands again. At this moment, Yi Linghan was exuding a cold and fierce killing intent. Such a big person, And you few couldn't keep an eye on him, useless. The assistant reminded, young Master Yi, the banquet is about to start. Yi Linghan turned his head and sent people to search. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, find Ji Ran. Then he strode downstairs. As he reached the stairway, he ran into a few people. Yi Yunping saw his son rushing and asked, "Where are you going? Urgent matter?" Yi Yunping roared, "Stop. No matter how urgent, you must wait until the banquet is over." Yi Linghan stopped in his tracks, clenching his fist, and then he turned his head, saying he couldn't wait, and again strode towards the door. The gentle Omega beside him consoled, "Uncle, please don't be angry. Young Master Yi must have something very important to deal with. I'll go down and speak to the guests. I think they would understand." On the other side, "What did you say? Yi Linghan actually turned you into an Omega?" Actually, what Ji Ran is most worried about now is whether he can turn back into an Omega. He doesn't want to be marked by Yi Linghan, nor does he want to become a caged bird for life. Sheng Wiking comforted, "This requires a blood test for further examination. But based on the current data, I'm not sure what Yi Linghan injected you with, but you are indeed an alpha now. To be precise, you are an alpha until your sensitive period comes." Ji Ran's face turned pale as he hung his head down. "So am I an alpha or an omega?" Sheng Wiking stepped forward to administer his 4, "Although we can't be sure right now. Rest assured, no matter what, I will definitely find a way to turn you back." That evening, just as Ji Ran stepped out of Sheng Wiking's clinic, his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from Yi Linghan. Ji Ran didn't think twice before hanging up. However, the phone persisted in ringing. Just as Ji Ran was about to blacklist Yi Linghan's number, a pair of hands landed on his shoulders, and the man's overpowering aura instantly enveloped him, only to hear Yi Linghan say coldly, "Am I treating you too well, so much so that you've forgotten what you are?" Ji Ran's face turned pale. "Did you come to find me just to say this?" He had naively thought he would come to explain about DH. Without any chance to resist or react, he was dragged by Yi Linghan into the car. With a loud bang, Ji Ran was thrown dizzy, taking a long time to come to his senses. "What do you want to do?" The man leaned in close. "Are you entering a sensitive period?" The boy, forced to transition from an alpha to an omega, had run away to avoid being marked by the man. In order not to be marked by a man, he ran away, yet he was still caught by a man. At this moment, Yi Linghan is pressing down on him. "Are you experiencing your sensitive period?" Ji Ran is startled and turns even paler. "No, I can't let him see." He forces himself to calm down. "There's nothing," and then he tears open his collar. "You can smell for yourself." Ji Ran's fingers are trembling, but Yi Linghan, eager to verify, doesn't notice. There is no scent of pheromones at all, only the scent of an alpha. How can this be? He irritably pushes Ji Ran away. Sitting aside with a face as dark as iron, Ji Ran suddenly seeks out Sheng Wiking. Could it be not because of his sensitive period? I've told you many times not to look for Sheng Wiking. Have all my words gone in one ear and out the other? Ji Ran sneers. Shouldn't you, young Master Yi, be very busy today? Oh right, I haven't congratulated you yet. Yi Linghan gets angry. Must you always talk to me in such a sarcastic tone? If you considered me at all, I wouldn't have had to get together with Gon Rui. Ji Ran looks at him incredulously. Don't make excuses for your betrayal. And who you're with has nothing to do with me. After speaking, he tries to pull open the car door, intending to get out. Yi Linghan grabbed his wrist. Ji Ran shook it slightly, but it didn't move an inch. Let go. Yi Linghan glared at Ji Ran fiercely. What did you just say? Ji Ran blurted out, I said it doesn't matter to me who you're with. But before he could finish, Yi Linghan sealed his lips. Ji Ran wanted to resist, but as the most outstanding alpha, Yi Linghan had absolute strength. Yi Linghan, you're crazy. Ji Ran was a bit scared. He couldn't be like this with Yi Linghan now. He just went through a sensitive period, and although he had an inhibitor injection, there was still a risk. If something really happened, he would never be a true alpha again. Ji Ran used all his strength to free one hand. Then he raised his hand and slapped Yi Linghan across the face. The sudden move stunned both of them. Yi Linghan's gaze instantly turned icy. He was the pride of heaven, never before had anyone hit him. He grabbed Ji Ran by the neck. You dare hit me? Ji Ran looked at him fearlessly. Yi Linghan raised his hand high. He really must be crazy. Why, even now, couldn't he bring himself to hit him? The fist finally landed on Ji Ran's face. He pressed Ji Ran's hand again, reluctant to hit him, so he had to torture him in another way. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. Just as he entered his sensitive period, he faced the man's mark. How could he escape the fate of the child? In the previous episode, Yi Linghan wanted to mark Ji Ran. Ji Ran was terrified. Although he had taken inhibitors at this time, it was hard to guarantee there wouldn't be exceptions. So, he slapped Yi Linghan directly. This completely enraged Yi Linghan, who had been the favored son of heaven and had never been hit before. But no matter what, he just couldn't bring himself to hurt Ji Ran. So, he decided to torture Ji Ran in another way. Yi Linghan's sudden movement scared Ji Ran. Ji Ran didn't know his current situation and was afraid that Yi Linghan's recklessness would result in him having a child. His fingers were tightly pressing against the car window. At this moment, he felt very desperate, but more than that, he was terrified. Ji Ran was hit so hard that his body ached, as if he was about to fall apart. In the final moments, he pleaded in a humble tone, "Please, I beg you, no more." Yi Linghan was surprised. Ji Ran, being an alpha, was usually so dominant. He had never softened his stance before. What happened today? Hearing the sound of his soft voice begging for mercy melted Yi Linghan's heart. Without a second thought, he complied with Ji Ran's request. Ji Ran finally breathed a sigh of relief, then blacked out. Yi Linghan caught him in his arms. Previously so strong, now he still had to yield. "You, what's the use of being so stubborn? You have the mouth of a knife but a heart of tofu. You resist me on the surface, but deep down, you still love me, don't you?" Yi Linghan felt a bit smug. He kissed Ji Ran's forehead. "Let's go home." Upon returning to Yi Linghan's villa, the servants, uneasy, went up to admit their faults and informed him that the master had arrived and had been waiting in the living room for a long time. As soon as Yi Linghan entered the living room, he was met with a torrent of scolding from his father. If it weren't for Gan Rui stepping in, the Yi family would have become a laughingstock by now. "I don't care what nonsense you pull off outside, but from now on, you're to report to me every day. And when Gan Rui's heat comes, you must mark him." Yi Linghan sipped his coffee. "Isn't this a bit irresponsible? Besides, I'm not interested in Omegas." Old Master Yi got angry again. "Shut up. Don't forget you're the only son and the sole heir of the Yi family lineage." Yi Linghan paused. If it wasn't for his desire to be with Ji Ran, why would he have dealt with Gan Rui? Let's see if he's truly magnanimous or just pretending. Yi Linghan came to the guest room. "I have to say, Gan Rui is indeed good looking. For an alpha, he's very attractive." But Yi Linghan just feels that his face is not even 1/10,000th as attractive as Ji Ran's. Gan Rui rubbed his eyes. "Young Master Yi, you've come." Yi Linghan was not polite to him. "Thank you for what you did today, but I won't be with you." Gan Rui smiled softly. "Is it because of young Master Ji? If I remember correctly, he should be an AF. Let's make a deal. I can help you get what you want. With today's advanced technology, we don't need intimate contact. This way, your father won't interfere with who you're with." Yi Linghan looked at him. "What do you want?" Gan Rui said, "I want the entire Gan family, and 500 million. Almost without hesitation, Yi Linghan agreed. As long as he could be with Ji Ran, what difficulty is there in giving up the Gan family and 500 million? He was forced to change from an alpha to an omega. Now his beloved calls him boring and disgusting, and even leaves him to fend for himself. After Yi Linghan and Gan Rui reached an agreement, Yi Linghan went to Ji Ran's room. Ji Ran was still asleep, looking incredibly enticing. Yi Linghan felt a slight movement in his heart and leaned in. Ji Ran instinctively caught him. Feeling his response, Yi Linghan felt very proud. He knew Ji Ran couldn't bear to leave him. Ji Ran smelled a strong scent of omega pheromones. Not good, he suddenly pushed Yi Linghan away. "Don't touch me." Yi Linghan suddenly became angry. "What are you doing? I stayed up all night for you and this is how you treat me?" Ji Ran questioned. "Did you touch him?" He really couldn't imagine what to do if Yi Linghan had marked Gan Rui. What if Yi Linghan marked Gan Rui? "I've always been someone who can't see the light of day." How pathetic. Ji Ran's questioning made Yi Linghan very angry. "If I had touched him, why would I come back to endure your sarcasm? Gan Rui is much gentler and cuter than you. He's willing to have a child for me. Look at you, what can you do for me?" Every word from Yi Linghan was like a knife. His eyes were full of sadness. "Does loving you mean giving up on my own life?" Yi Linghan noticed Ji Ran's grievance and let go of his hand. "You weren't like this before. You've become more and more boring. I don't even know why I came back. Just the sight of you makes me sick." Ji Ran's face turned deathly pale, and Yi Linghan had already walked out of the bedroom without looking back. Ji Ran's tears streamed down. Boring and disgusting, how ironic. The man he loved without dignity evaluated him like this. Due to the reaction of the conversion agent, Ji Ran developed a fever. The sustained high fever frightened the servants in the villa. They hurriedly called Yi Linghan. At this time, Yi Linghan was attending a business banquet. Gan Rui reminded him, "Young Master Yi, your phone is ringing." Yi Linghan angrily hangs up the phone. It must be Ji Ran asking him to come back. This time, he must coldly ignore him for a few days. It was all because he was too indulgent before. Every time they argue, no matter whose fault it is, Ji Ran is always the first to apologize. In the past, he could tolerate and concede to himself, but now he has become so arrogant and ungrateful. The phone rings again, and a strong chill emanates from the bottom of Yi Linghan's heart. He answers the call. Speak, what is it? The butler's anxious voice comes through the phone. Young Master Yi, young Master Ji is sick. Yi Linghan sneers, thinking Ji Ran is just too proud to ask him to return and is now pretending to be sick for sympathy. The butler, sweating anxiously, says, no, young Master Ji is really sick. I've just sent you a video, you'll know once you see it. Yi Linghan, irritated, replies, I don't have time to watch him act, tell him to save it. He always says he's an alpha, with such a good constitution, then let him deal with it himself. The call is mercilessly ended. Ji Ran is the most stubborn. To make him yield, Yi Linghan knows he must be ruthless. 7 days later, Ji Ran finally wakes up. During those 7 days, Yi Linghan hadn't made a single call. He even withdrew all the servants from the villa, leaving Ji Ran without even a sip of hot water. Ji Ran knows Yi Linghan is forcing him to yield and bow, but this time, he won't succumb to his will anymore. The boy was forced to change from an alpha to an omega, and under the man's various tortures, he finally gave up. However, the man did not intend to let him go. In the last episode, Ji Ran fell ill. Yi Linghan thought Ji Ran was pretending and even withdrew all the servants from the villa, leaving Ji Ran without a single sip of hot water. Ji Ran knew that Yi Linghan was forcing him to submit, but this time he would not yield to his will. After recovering, Ji Ran decided to return to school to prepare for his graduation. Just as he got out of the taxi, Ji Ran's gaze was drawn to two figures in the distance. Their actions were unusually intimate, like a couple in love. Ji Ran suddenly realized that it must be Yi Linghan coming to drop off Gan Rui for school. He gave a bitter smile. He and Yi Linghan had been in a relationship for 4 years, but Yi Linghan only took him to school when he was pursuing him. After winning him over, it was always Ji Ran going to Yi Corporation to find Yi Linghan. Sometimes, when Yi Linghan had meetings or was busy with work, Ji Ran would wait for hours or even a whole day, and he did so without any complaints or regrets. Now that he thinks about it, he was really an idiot blinded by love at that time. It's just that he blames himself for bringing this upon himself. But it really hurts here. Knowing that they are already engaged, but still unable to control his own heart. I don't want to see these two again. He quickened his pace to leave, but a stop made him halt. Ji Ran turned his head. Yi Linghan, holding Gan Rui's hand, had already walked over. The butler told me you were sick. You don't look sick. If you want to see me, you don't need such an excuse. If you ask me sincerely, I might come to see you. Ji Ran felt a sharp pain in his heart. He turned away. I don't want to see you. Then he lifted his foot to leave. However, Yi Linghan didn't let him. Did I say you could leave? Ji Ran's eyes reddened. You're already engaged, what else do you want from me? Linghan sneered, what do I want? Seeing me trying to walk away, are you playing hard to get? Ji Ran, how did you become like this? Your scheming nature really makes me. Ji Ran lowered his head. If adding sin to sin, why fear no words? If there's no love, everything is wrong. Gan Rui tugged at Yi Linghan's sleeve. Yi Xiao, I think that's enough. Yi Linghan mocked, Ji Ran, if you had even a fraction of Rui's understanding, I wouldn't hate you so much. Han felt that after saying this, Ji Ran would not hold his arm and beg. However, Yi Linghan made a miscalculation. Since Mr. Yi knows I detest and find him boring, let's not contact each other again. Yi Linghan's face suddenly turned very ugly. He grabbed Ji Ran's hand fiercely. Dare you say that again? Ji Ran broke free from his grasp and strode into the school. Yi Linghan watched Ji Ran's departing figure. He just said no more contact, but in his own eyes, he's clearly just a plaything. Only I can discard him, he has no right to initiate leaving. From that day on, knowing Yi Linghan's identity and status, he would never allow himself to engage in a love affair without offspring. He was always prepared for an eventual breakup. Now that he's sobered up, it's time to put an end to this relationship. Suddenly, hands were laid on his shoulders. Who allowed you to leave? Without my permission, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Ji Ran is bullied by Yi Linghan again. Just because he uttered the word breakup, he was ensnared by Yi Linghan from then on. In the last episode, Ji Ran let go, hoping Yi Linghan would not contact him again. He didn't have the right to say he was leaving first. Ji Ran tried hard to break free from his grip. What right do you have to interfere with my freedom? You are already engaged, don't bother me anymore. Yi Linghan had never been treated so coldly by Ji Ran in their 4 years of dating. Speaking so firmly now, Yi Linghan couldn't accept it. He grabbed Ji Ran tightly. Ji Ran, I'll say it one last time, only I can say I don't want you. You don't have the right to break up. Keep dreaming. In life, you're mine. In death, you're my ghost. Ji Ran's heart tightened sharply. How much of a bastard do you have to be to say such things? He bit Yi Linghan's shoulder hard. He bit Yi Linghan's shoulder. Whether you accept it or not, I tell you I won't go back to that place with you again. Yi Linghan's face turned gloomy. Jiren, I have really spoiled you, making you more and more unruly, and unable to recognize your own identity, becoming someone who disgusts me. Jiren lowered his head and gave a self-deprecating smile. Since you despise me so much, we might as well part ways and never see each other again. Yi Linghan's eyes suddenly widened. You still insist on leaving me? Jiren looked at him resolutely. In that moment, Yi Linghan actually felt fear. With his noble status, so many excellent Omegas had thrown themselves at him. He grabbed Jiren's hand, but why did he just not want to let him go? He dragged Jiren to the nearby ginkgo forest. Jiren had just recovered from a serious illness and was no match for Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan pushed him against a ginkgo tree and then pressed himself against him. You are not allowed to leave. I don't agree to break up. You can forget about leaving me in this lifetime. You see, you are already used to me. You've been very lonely these days without me around, right? Jiren verbally denied it, but his body was very honest. Yi Linghan smugly curled his lips. Can you really leave me like this? You can't be a normal alpha anymore. Look at you now, do you still have the ability to mingle with betas and omegas? The mocking words made Ji Ran feel utterly humiliated. With strength from who knows where, Ji Ran suddenly broke free from Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan, we were once deeply in love, must you be so heartless? Yi Linghan pinned Ji Ran against the tree once again. I'm heartless because you're willful. After saying that, he forcibly tore Ji Ran's clothes. Be good, I don't want to hurt you, he murmured as his lips touched that fair skin. Ji Ran threw a punch. Don't touch me, I find you disgusting. Yi Linghan touched his face in disbelief. What right do you have to find me disgusting, to say such things in front of me? The next second, he pounced on Ji Ran. Tearing off all of Ji Ran's clothes, Ji Ran's eyes were filled with fear. Yi Linghan, you've really gone mad. Ji Ran was bullied by Yi Linghan again, photographed and threatened, and what's more terrifying is that Ji Ran's omega glands acted up at that moment. In the last episode, we saw Yi Linghan pounce directly on Ji Ran in the midst of a bustling campus, with no one lingering around the tree-lined promenade. Listening to Ji Ran's subdued voice, Yi Linghan's blood boiled with desire. Ji Ran may have a temper, but his body could be the death of him. Although he has Ji Ran now, why does it still feel insufficient? Yi Linghan grasps Ji Ran's neck. Who else can satisfy you but me? His words pierced Ji Ran's heart, causing agony so intense he wished to cease existing. Ji Ran closed his eyes in despair. After a brief tidy up, Yi Linghan returned to his refined and noble demeanor. In contrast, Ji Ran looked much more disheveled. The sight of Ji Ran, clothes in disarray, made Yi Linghan's breathing grow heavy. He really couldn't bear to part with Ji Ran, even if he couldn't become an omega. Keeping him close wouldn't be too bad. The pity was that he was so unteachable. In an effort to control Ji Ran, he took out his phone. He snapped several photos of the disheveled Ji Ran. Hearing the shutter sound, Ji Ran jerked his head up. What are you doing? Yi Linghan twisted his wrist in retaliation. Isn't it obvious what I am doing? Then he pressed him against the silver birch tree, continuously taking pictures. Ji Ran was so anxious that his eyes were red. How could Yi Linghan do such a thing? He can't just take photos of him. Yi Linghan took a lot of photos, and finally, contentedly, he let go of Ji Ran. He smirked and coldly said, Ji Ran, I'm warning you, don't you dare leave my side. If I find out you've done anything to betray me, I will immediately release these photos. Do you believe that with a simple flick of my fingers, I can ruin you? Ji Ran believed him. He knew Yi Linghan was capable of anything. Yi Linghan threw clothes at Ji Ran. Behave and go to class, no tricks. After school, obediently return to the villa and wait for me. His arrogant words felt like commands, making Ji Ran feel like he was nothing but a lowly being. Ji Ran clenched his fists tightly, not letting his expression reveal anything. Yi Linghan was always observing. Ji Ran didn't even get angry despite the harsh words. Thinking about this possibility, Yi Linghan's heart clenched abruptly. A fear that was indescribable suddenly turned to anger. Maybe anyone could betray and leave him, but not Ji Ran. Shung Ganru will soon be in heat. I'll mark him. So treasure the time I'm with you. Maybe in a few days, I'll be completely sick of you. Ji Ran suddenly widened his eyes, his face as pale as paper. Yi Linghan really wanted to be with Ganrui. After a long time, Ji Ran finally regained some strength. Yi Xiao, congratulations. I wish you and Gong Xiao an early birth of your child and a long-lasting marriage. Yi Linghan couldn't believe it. What did you say? Yi Linghan looked at Ji Ran's departing figure. His eyes suddenly turned cold. He meant it. Exiting the ginkgo forest, Ji Ran almost used up all his strength. Ji Ran wanted to pull himself together, forget this relationship, and start anew. At this moment, Ji Ran stumbled and fell to the ground. At the same time, a faint fragrance emitted from his body. Damn, he had grown omega glands. Ji Ran suddenly entered a sensitive period. How could he escape the pursuit of so many alphas? Previously, we mentioned that after being bullied, Ji Ran smelled a faint fragrance, and omega glands appeared on his wrist. The red spots became more prominent, and the pheromones on his body grew stronger. What should he do? In a few seconds, the passing students noticed. Ji Ran clenched his fists, thinking he must not be discovered in a school full of alphas. He started running quickly. Yi Linghan had just reached the school gate when a large group of students ran southward, saying something. Omeg, Yi Linghan became vigilant. The wind blew past, carrying a faint fragrance. The sweet, enticing scent made Yi Linghan's blood boil. A flash of realization crossed Yi Linghan's mind, and his pupils constricted sharply. Could it be that Ji Ran had become an omega because of the synthetic agent? The excitement in Yi Linghan's eyes grew more intense at this possibility. He must find Ji Ran and not let anyone else touch him. He changed direction and ran toward the crowd. Ji Ran staggered into the school auditorium, forcing himself to hold on. If one is marked by an alpha, from then on they can only be an omega. Ji Ran doesn't want to be dominated by any alpha, not even Yi Linghan. He turned around to lock the door and finally, unable to hold up, slid down. Soon after, loud banging sounds came from outside the door. Each bang made Ji Ran's heart tremble. Listening to the sounds coming from all directions, Ji Ran's heart sank bit by bit. Was he really going to be marked by an alpha? Yi Linghan arrived at the performance hall's entrance and saw that many alphas had already gathered there. He grabbed an alpha with bloodshot eyes, who's inside. The alpha couldn't be bothered to answer him. Yi Linghan kicked him fiercely, and at that moment there was a loud crash. A large hole was broken in the window and an alpha was climbing inside. Seeing this, Yi Linghan yanked the person out and threw him away forcefully. The person inside is mine. If anyone dares to touch him, I won't let you leave the school gates. Having said that, he turned and leapt through the broken window into the performance hall. His agile eyes searched around, the scent of pheromones in the air growing fainter. Yi Linghan's gaze sharpened as he sniffed. Oh, it's gone. Anxious to find Ji Ran, Yi Linghan didn't dwell on where the scent had gone. He quickly searched the performance hall. Ji Ran wasn't there. Could it be that the person just now wasn't Ji Ran? He takes out his phone to call Ji Ran. The exhibition hall is eerily quiet, not a sound to be heard. Just as Yi Linghan is about to hang up, he hears a faint ringing sound in the distance. Yi Linghan finally catches Ji Ran during his sensitive period. Can Ji Ran escape Yi Linghan's inspection? Previously, just as Yi Linghan was about to hang up, he heard a faint ringing sound in the distance and turned to see Ji Ran standing at the entrance of the exhibition hall. Yi Linghan quickly steps forward. The person inside just now was you, right? Are you experiencing your sensitive period? Ji Ran, with a cold face, I'm an alpha. I don't have a sensitive period. You've mistaken me for someone else. Yi Linghan obviously doesn't believe it. Impossible. Let me smell you. At that moment, a hand grabs Yi Linghan's wrist. Mr. Yi, please show some respect in public. Yi Linghan's gaze turns cold. What are you doing here? Sheng Wiking replies, I am a psychology professor at this school. Is it strange for me to be here? Yi Linghan's piercing gaze falls on Ji Ran. At such a close distance, Yi Linghan could clearly smell the scent belonging to an alpha from Ji Ran. Ji Ran, tell me, how come you're here? Ji Ran replied without revealing anything. With such a big incident happening at school, naturally, I had to come and see. Yi Linghan looked him over. Is that so? Sheng Wiking said, let's go. Ji Ran didn't even glance at Yi Linghan before turning to leave. Yi Linghan quickly followed. Ji Ran, I've warned you more than once not to associate with irrelevant people. Have my words been completely ignored, or do I really carry so little weight now? Ji Ran glanced at him. This is a school, not the Yi family's territory. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran's arm. Stop. Nega, the sign of a gland, should be right here. Whether it is or isn't, one look will tell. Ji Ran's scalp exploded, his heart thumping uncontrollably. Yi Linghan was testing him. Yi Linghan gently stroked Ji Ran's wrist. Right or not, you tell me. Suddenly, someone rushed in. Professor Sheng, come take a look, there's an omega in heat over here. Yi Linghan's expression turned serious, and he looked somewhat disappointed, letting go of Ji Ran's hand. The omega, blushing, stammered, "I came looking for someone." Sheng Wiking carefully observed and realized that this Omega had already been marked. Probably here to find the Alpha. Yi Linghan also noticed something was amiss. That pheromone just now wasn't emitted by the person in front of him. Another Omega is hiding in this campus. Could it be Ji Ran? Suddenly an Alpha appeared. "Xiao Yue, why did you come here?" The little Omega looked at the person in front of him with pleading eyes. "Today is my sensitive period. Can you help me? You marked me, you should take responsibility for me." The Alpha shook him off coldly. "I've marked many, do you think I have to take responsibility for all of them? Don't daydream. And just look at yourself. At that time, I only helped you out of pity. Don't tell me you really thought I liked you." Ji Ran's fists cracked with anger. Enough with the scumbags. This was obviously an indirect criticism. Yi Linghan frowned. Sheng Wiking helped the little Omega up and looked coldly at the Alpha. "Unless you want to be expelled, behave better from now on." Then he turned his head, ready to call Ji Ran, but the corridor was empty. In order not to let Yi Linghan know that he is an Omega, he is ready to burn all his bridges. But it was discovered during the medication. As mentioned before, Yi Linghan had some doubts. The scent of the pheromone just now was definitely not from that little Omega. So, while Sheng Wiking was dealing with the Omega incident, he directly took Ji Ran away. "Yi Linghan, let me go." In the end, Ji Ran punched Yi Linghan on the back. Yi Linghan, rubbing his back, was obviously a bit angry. "Make another scene, I dare you." Little did he know, Ji Ran really gave him another punch, then turned around and left. Yi Linghan was furious. He grabbed Ji Ran's arm. "Have you had enough?" After saying that, he picked up Ji Ran and strode towards the direction where the sedan was parked. Ji Ran was thrown harshly into the back seat, screaming in pain. After Yi Linghan got into the car, he immediately locked the door and then drove off quickly. Ji Ran pounded on the car door, roaring, "Stop the car, I want to get off." Yi Linghan, with a gloomy tone, said, "Shut up." Soon, the car arrived at the villa. As soon as Yi Linghan pushed the person into the villa's door, he pinned them against it and asked one last time, "Was the person at the school auditorium today you?" Ji Ran's heart raced with panic, wondering if Yi Linghan had become suspicious. Had he given anything away? He feigned calm and replied for the last time, "It wasn't me." Yi Linghan looked down at Ji Ran. The scent of the Omega's pheromones was off. "So now you've learned to lie," he pondered as the image of a small Omega kneeling and begging an Alpha flashed through his mind again and again. If Yi Linghan discovered his secret and marked him completely, his fate might be the same as that small Omega. He closed his eyes tight, refusing to end up like that. When he opened his eyes again, the panic was gone. "I didn't lie to you," he said as he began to unbutton his shirt. "If you don't believe me, you can check." Yi Linghan actually wasn't sure, and indeed, there was no scent of pheromones on Ji Ran. Could he really not be the one? Yi Linghan, feeling somewhat reluctant, draped the clothes back on Ji Ran. "All right, if the person today really wasn't you. Well, if you're really not the person today, I'm with you now. You wouldn't try to prove it to me, right? Otherwise, you'll never be able to leave this villa." Jiren is also making a last-ditch effort, hoping that after this time, Yi Linghan will no longer pester him. Yi Linghan carries Jiren to the bedroom. He gently puts him down. Jiren doesn't struggle and is very compliant throughout. Yi Linghan over and over again. Jiren really couldn't take it anymore. "Yi Linghan, enough is enough." Yi Linghan smirked, "You're not an Omega. What's wrong with a touch?" Jiren coldly looked at him, "You can go find Gon Rui." Yi Linghan got angry, "Why are you always so boring? At times like this, you have to say such things to frustrate me." Until late at night, Yi Linghan fell asleep. Jiren carefully got out of bed and found the medicine in his backpack. Although he injected the suppressant, since he just developed an Omega physique, to avoid any sudden situations, he just put the medicine in his mouth. A man's deep voice sounded from behind, "Jiren, what are you doing?" Jiren was imprisoned in the villa, becoming a bird in a cage from then on. When did it happen? When can it come out? Last episode, Ji Ran decided to take a risk so as not to arouse Yi Linghan's suspicion. Unexpectedly, she was discovered while taking the medicine. "What are you doing?" Ji Ran pretended to be calm, trying to stabilize her wildly beating heart. "I'm taking medicine." "You're not going to interfere with that too, are you?" Yi Linghan snatched the bottle. "What medicine is this?" Ji Ran replied, "Just some vitamins." Sheng Ji said, "My immune system is too weak." Yi Linghan got irritated upon hearing Sheng Wiking's name. "I've told you many times not to associate with Sheng Wiking. Why didn't you tell me if you were feeling unwell?" Ji Ran tried to snatch her medicine back. Yi Linghan dodged. "Give me my medicine back. I'm not in the mood for your nonsense." Yi Linghan frowned deeply, grabbed Ji Ran's neck. Is this how you talk to me? Don't think you can act recklessly just because I like you. In my eyes, you're nothing but a pet. Know your place. I really want to strangle you right now. After saying that, he increased the pressure of his hand, looking at Ji-ran's pained expression, but eventually, he let go, reluctant to hurt her further. Ji-ran, coughing in pain, Yi Linghan coldly watched her. You wanted this bottle of medicine, right? Here you go. With a bang, the medicine bottle shattered. Yi Linghan strode out of the bedroom. Ji-ran squatted down and picked up the pills one by one. The times of heartbreak were too many, slowly becoming numb. Ji-ran curled up into a ball, slowly closed his eyes. The next morning, Ji-ran was woken up by noisy sounds. Turning his head, he saw two people installing surveillance cameras. The man explained, "Young Master Yi sent us to install them in every room and every corner." Ji-ran hurriedly got up. "Why install this?" The staff replied that they were just doing their job for money. Ji-ran angrily wanted to find Yi Linghan to ask clearly. Just opened the door and saw a group of bodyguards standing at the door. "Sorry, young Master Yi ordered that you cannot leave the villa." Ji-ran was both angry and desperate. Yi Linghan really treated him like a pet. Ji-ran couldn't bear it anymore. He dialed Yi Linghan's phone. "What on earth do you want? I have already proven what you wanted." To his surprise, Yi Linghan replied, "I regret it now. Before I have an heir, you can forget about leaving." Ji-ran, in a fit of anger, smashed the phone on the ground. For several consecutive days, Yi Linghan did not appear. In the meantime, the butler delivered a new phone to Ji-ran and helped him install the SIM card. He was not allowed to go out, his activities were confined to the villa, and he couldn't even go to the garden. Ji-ran had completely become a bird in a cage. Yi Linghan, you are really ruthless, he thought. At this moment, there was a noisy shout from outside the door, "Get out of my way. My son lives here. He is the owner of this villa, the beloved of young Master Yi." Not only was Ji-ran imprisoned by Yi Linghan, but he also suffered from the relentless exploitation of his parents. He really doubted if he was their biological son. In the last episode, Yi Linghan had confined Ji-ran, forbidding him from leaving the villa. On this day, Ji-ran's parents came. "Ran, let us in. I am your mom. Your dad and I came to see you." Just as Ji-ran walked down the stairs, Li Huiquan saw him. "Let go, can't you see my son came to pick me up?" she said, shaking off the bodyguards and quickly rushing in. Li Huiquan grabbed Ji-ran's arm, looking at him with a fawning expression. "Why are you ignoring mom? Are you still mad at mom?" "I was wrong this time. I really have stopped gambling." Actually, Ji-ran had heard such promises many times before. "Ever since I was 15, I've been working and saving every penny. All the money was squandered by my parents." He's busy every day paying off debts for his parents, even having to take full responsibility for his brother's house purchase. After getting together with Yi Linghan, things got even worse. His tolerance only led to their endless demands. Now, being restricted by Yi Linghan, he can't go out to make money. Even if he could, he wouldn't want to spend another penny on his family. Seeing Ji-ran being indifferent to them, Ji Zongguo was furious. "Ji-ran, you don't even greet us when you see me and your mother. What kind of attitude is this?" Ji-ran spoke wearily. "Dad, if you're here for money, I really don't have any." Ji Zongguo didn't believe him. "You live in such a nice house and say you have no money? You have no money, but Yi Xiao certainly does. Go ask him for it. Your brother's apartment is just over 3 million, very cheap. You climb up the social ladder but don't help your family. You live in luxury while letting your parents and brothers suffer. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" Faced with his parents' unreasonable nagging once again, Ji-ran had only one thing to say: "I have no money." Seeing Ji-ran resolute in not giving them money, Li Huiquan started to panic. Ji Zongguo's eyes narrowed. "Ji-ran, if you don't give me 5 million today, I will disown you as my son." Both were incredulous. "What did you say?" Ji-ran spoke firmly. "Let's sever ties then. I won't give a penny to the family before you retire. If you want to live a good life, rely on yourselves. I am not obligated to pay for your greed." Furious and shaking, Ji Zongguo stepped forward and slapped Ji-ran. "You think you can kick us aside now that you're strong? Let me tell you, there's no way. If you don't bring out 20 million within 10 days, don't even think about severing ties." To stabilize the situation, Ji-ran nodded in agreement. Satisfied, Ji Zongguo finally left. Afterwards, Ji-ran called many classmates, all of whom gave perfunctory responses, saying they had no money. After Yi Linghan and Gon Rui got engaged, the classmates who always used to fawn over Ji-ran suddenly disappeared, a perfect illustration of the fickleness of the world. In a cold world, Ji-ran chuckled self-deprecatingly with his head hung low. Ji-ran opened a drawer in the cabinet. He took out a velvet box from inside, containing a watch that Yi Linghan gave him for his 18th birthday. The watch was still there, but Yi Linghan's heart was no longer with him. It was said the watch was worth 50 million. Selling it would definitely solve the pressing issue. Was there really nothing left between him and Yi Linghan? With a lingering fondness, he dialed Yi Linghan's number. If he asked Yi Linghan for money, he would surely be met with mockery. But he had no other choice. The moment the call connected, Ji Ran mustered his courage to speak. Yi Linghan, I was thinking. Hello, Mr. Yi is not available at the moment. Is there something I can help you with? Hearing the word bathing, a pang of pain shot through Ji Ran's heart. Yi Linghan was going to bully Ji Ran again. For the first time, Ji Ran faced a life-threatening danger. The previous episode mentioned Ji Ran's parents causing trouble, demanding 20 million from him within 10 days. With no other options, Ji Ran bravely called Yi Linghan. However, the person who answered the call was Gan Rui, who said that Yi Linghan was taking a shower. Ji Ran's expression froze, and her lips trembled forcefully, feeling a deep pain in her chest. The person on the other end of the phone continued, if it's urgent, I can pass the phone to young Master Yi. Ji Ran came back to her senses, and with difficulty uttered, it's nothing. After that, she hung up the phone quickly, tears continuously falling onto the cell phone. It turns out that when actually facing this situation, the heart still hurts. Yi Linghan took the phone. What did he say just now? Gan Rui looked up. Nothing much. I said you were taking a shower, and then he just hung up. Yi Linghan's frown deepened, feeling particularly upset. He deliberately had Gan Rui provoke Ji Ran. But why hasn't he called back to ask him? If he would admit his mistake and beg him to come back, all his bad temper is just being indulged. Gan Rui asked, Yi Xiao, why didn't you answer the phone just now? Yi Linghan, exuding an air of irritability, ran his fingers through his hair. I didn't want to. When is your sensitive period? Gan Rui calculated the time. In 5 days. Gan Rui explained, 3 days ago, you were on a business trip, and I could only inject suppressants. Do you expect another alpha to mark me? Yi Linghan emphasized once again, even if you are in your sensitive period, I will not mark you. Remember the conditions you agreed to. Gan Rui pointed to his wrist. But if you don't mark me, Uncle Yi will be suspicious. A temporary mark is red. Yi Linghan murmured that he would solve the issue with the marking. I got it. Gan Rui didn't say much more. After leaving Yi Linghan's room, without WeChat, Ji Ran didn't contact him again. Yi Linghan cursed, feeling it increasingly boring. Before, just a slight frown from him, Ji Ran would submit. How come today, provoked by Gan Rui, he showed no reaction at all? He opened the surveillance to see what Ji Ran was busy with. Ji Ran was on the phone, holding his mobile. I don't have anything valuable at hand to mortgage, except for a custom-made watch. It's said to be worth 50 million. I'll leave it with you for now. After I pay back the money, you can return the watch to me. Yi Linghan's eyes turned cold. Ji Ran, you're really something. Even the gift I gave you, you could easily give it away. It seems I've been too lenient usually. Today, I must punish him severely, let him know who is his heaven. On the way back, he received a call from his close friend. The gist was that Ji Ran was borrowing money everywhere, even planning to pawn the gift he received. Yi, when did you become so stingy? Not even giving out breakup fees. Yi Linghan's eyes showed ruthlessness. He could have just asked him for money, why insist on pawning their token of love? As Yi Linghan stepped into the bedroom with a murderous aura, he saw Ji Ran already asleep on the bed. He strode over and grabbed Ji Ran's clothes, slapping him fiercely. Yi Linghan abused Ji Ran once again. The ordeal lasting a day and a night almost killed Ji Ran. When he opened his eyes again, his only words were, Yi Linghan, I hate you. At this moment, Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran and gave him a brutal slap, the crisp sound echoing in the bedroom. Ji Ran and Yi Linghan had been together for 4 years. They had fought, made a fuss, and even talked about breaking up, but no matter what happened, Yi Linghan had never laid a hand on him. This was the first time, and Yi Linghan let go with a hint of guilt. But seeing the hatred in Ji Ran's eyes, what was that look? Thus, the only bit of guilt instantly vanished into thin air. He grabbed Ji Ran's chin. I was gone for just a few days, and you couldn't wait to find other men. The slap hurt, but not as much as Yi Linghan's words. Ji Ran finally reached his limit. He punched Yi Linghan in the face. His expression was icy, his eyes filled with murderous intent. What right do you have to say that to me, Yi Linghan? What kind of man are you? You're not even a person. Yellingen grabbed Jiren's neck tightly. Remembering the phone call just now, Jiren felt disgusted. He doesn't want such a filthy man. Don't touch me, you make me sick. Yellingen was clearly furious. You don't want me to touch you, you want Rongcheng too? He pulled a rope from the head of the bed and bound Jiren's hands tightly. I didn't realize you had become so desperate. My money isn't enough for you, making you borrow from everyone and lose face? Jiren roared, anyone is better than you. These words evidently provoked Yellingen completely. Fine, since everyone is better than me, today I will let you truly understand. He dragged Jiren in front of the mirror. Watch carefully how you beg me. Jiren had a terrible day, constantly bleeding. Late into the night, he developed a fever. In his delirium, he flashed back to his past interactions with Yellingen. This was his own bedroom. Back then, Yellingen was very gentle with him, holding him in his arms, repeatedly whispering sweet nothings, personally applying medication. To take care of him, the pampered young master Yellingen even learned to cook porridge. He almost burned down the kitchen. Recalling Yellingen's frantic behavior, Jiren curled his mouth into a bittersweet smile. At that time, it truly felt like a beautiful dream that would shatter at the slightest touch. Yellingen sat by the bed, staring at him the whole time, noticing the change in his expression. Jiren, what did you dream about? Why do you seem so sad? Jiren softly called out to Yiling Han. That soft voice instantly pierced Yiling Han's heart. He immediately leaned over. Renan, Jiren opened his empty eyes. Jiren opened his empty eyes, quietly looking at the man in front of him, slowly uttering, Yiling Han, I hate you, in a very soft voice, yet it stabbed fiercely into Yiling Han's heart. Jiren nearly died, but Yiling Han still wouldn't let him go. Last episode mentioned that Jiren, with empty eyes, slowly said, Yiling Han, I hate you, in a very soft voice, yet it was like a knife fiercely stabbing into Yiling Han's heart. Yiling Han couldn't believe it. What did you say? Jiren repeated, I said I hate you. Yiling Han lost control. He forcefully grabbed Jiren's neck. Hate me? What right do you have to hate me? Jiren started to feel lack of oxygen. His consciousness also became blurrier. He curved his lips. Perhaps this is for the best. There's nothing in this world worth my attachment anymore. He closed his eyes in despair. Slowly Jiren lost consciousness. His head tilted to one side. Yiling Han abruptly let go of his hand, somewhat panicked. Then he hugged Jiren tightly into his arms. Jiren, you wake up for me. If you dare to leave me, I'll make everyone in your family join you. Yiling Han shook Jiren desperately, like a madman. However, Jiren still had no reaction. Yiling Han quickly picked up his phone to call the doctor. Come over here immediately. When the doctor arrived, he saw Yiling Han holding Jiren tightly without letting go. Young Master Yi, calm down first. Young Master Ji has probably just fainted. Yiling Han turned around, his cold gaze making the doctor shudder. Wake him up. As the doctor examined him, he sighed. Such a good young man. He has the demeanor of an Omega. How could young Master Yi not cherish him? With so many injuries, who knows when he'll recover? The doctor couldn't bear to watch. Young Master Yi, young Master Ji's health has never been good. The last time he had a fever, it left lasting effects. You really can't keep doing this, or he might lose his life. Yiling Han immediately grasped the key point from the doctor's words. You said his last fever left lasting effects? His health was always good. How could he suddenly fall ill? Were you bribed by him? The doctor was astounded by Yiling Han's logic. It's because of the compound. Young Master's health is much worse than before. Yiling Han was stunned. He remembered what Jiren had said at that time. Do you know that if the compound causes a reaction, I could die? The doctor explained many side effects of the compound. Yiling Han clenched his fists. He has been enduring the side effects of the compound all this time? Why did he never tell me? The doctor gave Jiren antipyretic and anti-inflammatory injections, left some topical and oral medications, and then left. Yiling Han stayed with Jiren the whole time. Yiling Han recalled the times when Jiren was sick before, how Jiren would joke with him, saying it was just a common cold and there was no need to worry. Jiren slowly woke up, struggling to utter the word water. Yiling Han quickly propped him up and handed over the water, but Jiren suddenly remembered something. He slapped Yiling Han's hand away, shattering the cup. His action scattered all of Yiling Han's words of concern. Yiling Han insulted Jiren again, even throwing him to his fair-weather friends. The previous episode mentioned Jiren almost died. When he woke up, he slapped the cup out of Yiling Han's hand. Yiling Han widened his eyes in anger and shouted, "What are you doing? Don't touch me." Jiren's eyes were filled with deep hatred, thinking of last night's events and feeling unbearable pain. In that moment, Yiling Han's guilt towards Jiren dissipated. I have already humbled myself so much. Try causing a scene again. Don't be ungrateful. Jiren let out a cold laugh, his eyes full of disdain. Now, Yiling Han is like a beast that could go mad at any moment. The gradual lack of oxygen makes Jiren's breathing increasingly difficult, his face turning completely red. Yi Linghan suddenly thinks of something and forcefully releases his grip, throwing him aside. Ji Ran keeps coughing. Yi Linghan coldly watches him. Since you are so shameless, I'll fulfill your wish. The dazzling and wild lights make the private room look extremely enchanting. Yi Linghan forcefully opens the door. Next to him is Ji Ran, trying hard to endure. Yi Linghan approaches him, maliciously whispering in his ear, "Don't you want to make money? Perform well today. These people are all wealthy and powerful. If you serve them well, you won't be short on money." Everyone is a bit surprised to see Yi Linghan bring Ji Ran over. Yun Ziquayu steps forward. "Yi Xiao, what wind blows you here today?" He wraps his arm around Yi Linghan's neck. "What's going on here? You come out to play and bring little Cheng? And what did you mean by what you just said?" Yi Linghan doesn't answer him, throwing Ji Ran onto the sofa. Then he takes out a thick wad of cash from his pocket. "Make sure everyone here is satisfied, and this money is yours." The moment his words fall, the private room falls silent. Everyone has seen how much Yi Linghan used to care for Ji Ran. What's going on today? Yi Linghan is curious to see how long Ji Ran can hold out. The private room becomes lively again. "Ji Ran, hurry up and toast to young Master Yi. If you make young Master Yi happy, this money is yours." Yi Linghan grabs his chin and shakes it hard. "Didn't you hear me? Pour me a drink." Ji Ran directly retorted, "I don't know how." Yi Linghan let go of his head. "If you don't know, then learn. Stop acting so high and mighty." After speaking, he took a glass of wine and poured it over Ji Ran's head. "How were you cooing so softly when you borrowed money from Rongcheng? But you put on airs with me." The wine dripped onto Ji Ran, and it must be said that although Ji Ran is an alpha, he has a handsome and exquisite appearance. Everyone in the private room was staring straight at Ji Ran. This made Yi Linghan feel very annoyed. He originally wanted Ji Ran to learn his lesson, but instead, it drew a pack of wolves. He turned around and yelled, "What are you all looking at?" They all knew Yi's methods very well. No one wanted to mess with him at this critical moment. Ji Ran picked up the wine glass, and his cold voice followed, "Is it true that if I toast, the money on the table will be mine?" Ji Ran is causing drama with Yi Linghan again. When Ji Ran truly no longer cares about Yi Linghan, it's Yi Linghan who panics. As mentioned in the last episode, Yi Linghan humiliated Ji Ran. Ji Ran picked up the cup, then raised his head and said coldly, "If I make a toast, will the money on the table be mine?" When Yi Linghan heard this, a look of complacency flashed in his eyes. So what if he is aloof? He still has to obediently listen to his command. He was sure that Ji Ran was just putting on an act. As long as he scared him a little, he would definitely comply. Ji Ran walked towards Yi Linghan with the cup in hand, but his gaze didn't stop on his face at all. He directly looked past him and landed on someone else. "Mr. Liu, I toast to you." Silence in a word, "Sorry, it's my first time toasting, not very skilled." Then, leaning into his embrace, wrapping my arms around Mr. Liu's neck, the cold night air pressure soars. Under the dazzling lights, Ji Ran's eyes shine brightly. When Liu Hao catches her gaze, it's like being scratched by a kitten, uncomfortably itching. As Ji Ran brings the glass to his lips, he immediately leans in, wanting to drink, but Yi Linghan quickly pulls Ji Ran's arm away. Pulling him out from Liu Hao's embrace, the next second, he starts punching and kicking Liu Hao, saying, "You dare touch my person?" Liu Hao, beaten black and blue, keeps begging for mercy. Yun Ziquayu, seeing Yi Linghan losing control, worries about serious harm and quickly stops him. "We're all here to have fun, don't spoil the mood." Thinking to himself, Yi Linghan evidently cares, yet he's harsh and humiliating. Involved parties are blind, realizing later will make life difficult. And Ji Ran's move, a warning to others, probably stops anyone from underestimating him. Quite interesting. Yi Linghan grabs Ji Ran's arm. "Ji Ran, I never realized how casual you could be before, something anyone can notice." Ji Ran, who was thrown onto the sofa by Yi Linghan, looked disheveled, but his smile was blinding. "Young Master Yi, you have a terrible memory. You just told me to make everyone in the private room comfortable. I am just following your orders. If you think it's not enough, I can do more." Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran by the neck and gritted his teeth, shouting Ji Ran's name. Yun Ziquayu held Yi Linghan's wrist, trying to persuade him, "Young Master Yi, calm down. Hey, you over there, come and serve young Master Yi properly." An Omega, with a seductive smile, offered Yi Linghan a piece of watermelon. Yi Linghan took it out of spite, hoping Ji Ran would get angry seeing this. Yi Linghan's peripheral vision caught something, and his whole body stiffened. Ji Ran was holding a plate of bills, counting them. Yi Linghan felt like a ridiculous clown. He had tried multiple times to get Ji Ran's attention today, but Ji Ran's mind was not on him at all. The Omega in his arms restlessly picked up another piece of fruit. Yi Linghan glared at him fiercely, then forcefully pulled Ji Ran into his embrace. Grabbing his chin, he said, "Do you love money that much?" Ji Ran sneered, "If I don't love money, should I love you?" Ji Ran was truly disheartened this time. He only wished Yi Linghan would either let him go or kill him. At this moment, Yi Linghan was pinching Ji Ran's chin, teeth grinding with a crunching sound. "You love money that much?" Ji Ran laughed with reckless abandon. "If I don't love money, should I love you instead?" Talking about feelings only leads to heartache, talking about money won't. If he had gone after Yi Linghan's money from the start, he wouldn't be as battered as he is now. Yi Linghan threw Ji Ran's hand away. "Would you do it for anyone who gives you money?" Ji Ran looked at him expressionlessly. "Yeah, young Master Yi, remember to settle the expenses from the other day." Yun Ziquiu gasped, thinking Ji Ran was really audacious, not afraid that Yi Linghan might seriously hurt him. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji Ran's arm and dragged him outside. Staring at Yi Linghan's furious back, Chi Zhou leaned over to ask Yun Ziquiu, "Could this end up in a fatality?" Yun Ziquiu curled his lips, replying, "Probably not. Considering the situation today, there might not be a next time." Yi Linghan then took Ji Ran back to the villa all the way. "Can't you just be obedient and stay by my side?" Yi Linghan was truly infuriated. "Why do you have to leave me? What do you want me to do? I've done everything I could to keep you. Why does it only push you further away?" Ji Ran looked at Yi Linghan. "If I say I want to top you, could you do it?" Yi Linghan was stunned for a moment. "I gave you the chance to become an Omega. It's you who failed to take it." "Yi Linghan, is it your first day knowing me? When you pursued me, you said you would be with me forever." "Yi Linghan, answer me, you didn't lie to me. Stay by my side obediently, so we can always be together." Actually, deep down, he really can't leave Ji Ran. Gan Rui is just my other half in name. You don't need to quibble over this. Ji Ran smiled wryly, feeling foolish. What was she still hoping for? Yi Linghan stared straight at Ji Ran. "Do you know how angry I was when you were feeding Lu Hoquin drinks? Let's make up, Ji Ran." But before he could finish speaking, he was silenced by Ji Ran's words, because Ji Ran said, "Let's break up." The gentleness in Yi Linghan's eyes vanished instantly, replaced by a terrifying coldness. "What did you say?" A resolute light flickered in Ji Ran's eyes. "Let me go or kill me. Make your choice." What he wanted, Yi Linghan couldn't give. Rather than suffering humiliation by his side, she would rather die quickly. Yi Linghan held Ji Ran tight. "I've told you, even if you die, don't think about leaving me. You're mine. No matter what, I will never let you go." That night, Yi Linghan was extremely crazed. The doctor came to the villa again, and this time Ji Ran's condition was even worse than the last. He carefully closed the door. The young master's wounds have been treated. Ji Ran's injuries are very serious. She really cannot endure anymore. Yi Linghan looked coldly at the doctor. "Will it kill him? He wants to die anyway, what do I care? You've been staying at the villa recently, keep an eye on him and don't let him die." Jiren's only wish is. "Yellingen, let's break up." Unfortunately, he didn't have the strength to say it. At this moment, Yun Ziquiu was teasing Yellingen. "How many days has it been since you last went back? Are you having a spat with Jiren again?" Yellingen became even more irritated at these words. That night he was indeed too excessive, but he just couldn't control himself. Whenever he saw Jiren's face, he couldn't help but want to touch it. To prevent himself from doing anything more extreme, he simply didn't go back to see him. At this moment, Yellingen received a call from the villa. "Young Master Yi, please come back and take a look. Young Master Ji hasn't eaten for days." Yellingen suddenly stood up. "What are you guys doing? If he doesn't eat, then feed him. Where's the doctor? Have him come over and give him a nutrient injection." Yun Ziquiu shook his head secretly. "You believe that hunger strike trick?" He grabbed Yellingen's wrist. "If you go back, you'll fall right into his trap." Yellingen turned his head, his sharp eyes falling on Yun Ziquiu's face like knives. Yun Ziquiu instinctively let go. Yellingen turned and walked out of the private room. Yun Ziquiu felt a bit aggrieved. Using that kind of look on me for someone insignificant? So scary. Jiren slowly opened his eyes, listening to the sound of the night outside. "How are you now? Have you eaten? What did the doctor say?" "The doctor recommends hospitalization." Yi Linghan pushed the door open. He had never seen Ji Ran like this before. The person on the bed had eyes devoid of any sign of life, filled entirely with despair. Ji Ran turned his hollow eyes towards Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan leaned in close. "I'm here. What do you want to say?" Yi Linghan leaned in close to me. "What do you want to say?" Ji Ran took Yi Linghan's face in hand, gazing earnestly at her. He had so much to say. No one had ever loved him since he was a child. Until he turned 18 and met Yi Linghan. He had thought that this feeling could really last a lifetime, as Yi Linghan said. But in the end, it was just his wishful thinking. He couldn't remember anymore how they ended up this way today. He also wanted to say, Yi Linghan, let's break up, but he didn't even have the strength to speak and eventually fell into unconsciousness. Yi Linghan picked up Ji ran, quick, to the hospital. The dean, notified earlier, was already waiting at the hospital entrance with the medical team. Yi Linghan kept silent with a face ashen, watching as Ji ran was rushed into the emergency room. Sheng Wiking was invited to the hospital for an academic exchange and saw Ji ran lying on the stretcher as soon as he stepped out. His eyes widened in shock and he quickly approached, grabbing a nurse to ask, what happened to him? Severe malnutrition, seems to be caused by fasting, the nurse replied. Sheng Wiking's eyes turned cold, and he raised his fist to strike Yi Linghan. What have you done to him? Yi Linghan easily dodged Sheng Wiking's blow and cursed, you beast, Ji ran has given so much for you, and yet you treat him this way. Yi Linghan's eyes seemed to form ice, you have no right to interfere in what's between him and me. Sheng Wiking let out all the pent-up anger in his heart. You lunatic. Turning him into an Omega wasn't enough for you? Now you want his life too? Yi Linghan retorted, if I didn't love him, I wouldn't have turned him into an Omega. Ji ran finally escaped from Yi Linghan and was even confessed to by acute beta. Last episode mentioned Ji ran was critically ill. When he was sent to the hospital, Sheng Wiking happened to find him. Sheng Wiking angrily confronted Yi Linghan. In the end, he was chased out of the hospital by bodyguards. Don't show up in front of young Master Yi again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. Just as Sheng Wiking lifted his head, Rong Cheng's car stopped in front of him. Professor Sheng, what happened to you? Rong Cheng hurriedly helped Sheng Wiking up, you're badly hurt. I'll take you to the hospital. Yi Linghan has already surrounded this hospital. Going in now would be like running into a gunfight. It's just a minor scuffle. Why are you here? Rong Cheng replied, I was originally going to the hospital for an inspection and happened to run into you at the entrance. Sheng Wiking paused. Is this hospital owned by your family? Rong Cheng nodded, did something happen in the hospital? Sheng Wiking patted Rong Cheng's shoulder, can I ask you for a favor? Rong Cheng's attitude was very sincere. Professor Sheng, please tell me. As long as it's within my power, I will try my best to do it. Sheng Wiking knew that Rong Cheng had a good relationship with Ji ran. He wouldn't have lent him 20 million otherwise. Ji ran is trapped in this hospital. Please help me rescue Ji ran. 3 days later, Ji ran woke up again and found himself in a strange place. The servant quickly said, young Master Ji, you've just woken up. It's best not to walk around randomly. After talking with the servant for a few sentences, he learned that he was now in Tongcheng. Rong Cheng pushed the door and entered. Senior, you're awake. Are you feeling better? Ji ran remembered clearly. Before he passed out, he should have been trapped in a villa by Yi Linghan. How could he be here? Rong Cheng explained, it was Professor Sheng and I who brought you out from the hospital. This place is very safe. Take your time to recover. Yi Linghan won't find you here. Ji ran found it hard to believe that he had really escaped. He excitedly grabbed Rong Cheng's arm. Is this true? Your body hasn't fully recovered yet. Don't get too excited. Ji ran took a deep breath. Does this mean I can finally leave Yi Linghan behind and lead a normal life? Just thinking about escaping that luxurious cage made Ji ran tremble with excitement. He was finally free. Meanwhile, Yi Linghan was not doing well. How could a perfectly fine person just disappear? Search the entire city for me. I refuse to believe he can just vanish into thin air. Ji ran, are you really so eager to disappear from my side? Several days later, at Rong Cheng's villa, the two were comfortably having afternoon tea. Senior, you've been doing rehabilitation training for a week. How's your body now? Ji ran gave him a slight smile. Much better now. Thank you. Rong Cheng's heart skipped a beat, his gaze fixed on Ji ran. Ji ran was incredibly beautiful, almost unreal for an alpha. He nervously looked away but finally mustered the courage. Senior, I like you. Give me a chance to take good care of you. Ji ran was slightly stunned, not expecting Rong Cheng to confess so directly. Yi Linghan grabbed Ji ran. Coincidentally, Ji ran was in a sensitive period. The superior said Ji ran finally escaped from Yi Linghan. His smile was dazzling, making Rong Cheng's heart leap. He gathered his courage. Senior, I like you. Give me a chance to take good care of you. Ji ran was slightly stunned, not expecting Rong Cheng to confess so directly. After a brief moment of surprise, he gratefully said, Rong Cheng, thank you for liking me, but I really don't have the heart for a relationship right now. After being in a relationship with Yi Linghan for 4 years, Ji ran had exhausted all his emotional energy and was afraid to touch love again. Rong Cheng did not give up. He earnestly said, Senior, we can start as friends. If you still don't like me in the future, we can always be friends. I know you've just come out of a relationship and can't trust anyone right now. It's okay. I can wait. Ji Ran felt a bit troubled. I can't be with you out of gratitude for your efforts. That would be disrespectful to you. Rong Chung quickly changed the subject. Right, senior, today is the Mid-Autumn Festival and there's a grand masquerade. Let me take you there to unwind a bit. Ji Ran was somewhat worried. Yi Linghan won't let me off easily. It's better if I don't show my face. I'll go abroad once the paperwork is ready, so I won't cause you any trouble. Rong Chung took his hand. Don't worry, senior. Tong Chung is my brother's turf. Even if Yi Linghan has far-reaching influence in Biacheng, he can't reach us here. I heard the party is fun. Let's go have a look. Ji Ran changed into a black suit, looking noble and elegant. Rong Chung couldn't help but admire. Senior, you look so handsome. He handed over the mask he was holding. The two headed towards the party, unaware that a black Maybach was slowly stopping at the hotel entrance. Yi Linghan was getting out of the car. At 8 o'clock, the party officially began. Rong Chung was quite excited. Senior, let's go down and have some fun. Ji Ran, not wanting to dampen his spirits, nodded in agreement. Driven by the music, Ji Ran gradually relaxed, chatting and laughing with Rong Chung in the dance floor. Suddenly, his gaze froze. Ji Ran saw Yi Linghan sitting on the sofa, and obviously, Yi Linghan saw him too. He quickly got up, pushing people in the dance floor aside without hesitation. Where did she go? She was right here just a moment ago. At this moment, Gan Rui grabbed his hand. At that moment, Gan Rui grabbed his hand. Yi Xiao, Yi Linghan turned his head, wondering if he had seen wrong. That person wasn't Ji Ran at all. On the other side, Rong Cheng was obviously surprised. How could Yi Linghan possibly come to Tong Chung? Ji Ran, hidden behind the mask, had a pale face. It's definitely him. I'm not mistaken. Rong Cheng grabbed Ji Ran's hand. Stay behind me. Slow down your steps. Don't arouse suspicion. But at that moment, a delicate and elegant fragrance wafted from behind. An Omega is in their sensitive period. The fragrance grew stronger, and Rong Cheng's breathing became more rapid, and this scent was right behind him. Ji Ran was caught by Yi Linghan once again. What consequences would he face this time? At this moment, Rong Cheng was hurriedly pulling Ji Ran away. But unexpectedly, Ji Ran entered his sensitive period at this moment. Rong Cheng widened his eyes in disbelief. Isn't the senior an alpha? Suddenly, the place was thrown into chaos. Ji Ran's consciousness became more and more blurred. He grabbed Rong Cheng's hand. My sensitive period has started. Help me leave here. Rong Cheng pulled Ji Ran into his arms and then looked up at the surrounding crowd. Sorry, my boyfriend is having a fever. Please make way for us. Although Rong Cheng is a beta, he has a strong presence. The waiter quickly approached. Sir, there's a lounge over there. If you go out like this, it will easily cause unnecessary trouble. The scent of pheromones on Ji Ran's body is getting stronger, and Rong Cheng can hardly hold back. As long as he sees his senior's neck, he wants to mark him. He shook his head vigorously. What is he thinking now? He absolutely cannot take advantage of the situation. He looked at the waiter. Please show us the way. The three of them quickly went to the lounge. Ji Ran felt as if he was on fire, as if thousands of ants were gnawing at his sanity. He whispered to Rong Cheng, hurry up and take me away from here. Yi Linghan is here. It's dangerous, he is coming. With his reminder, Rong Cheng also realized and quickened his pace. Yi Linghan had obviously already followed. He wouldn't mistake it. That was Ji Ran. No wonder the scent of the pheromones was so familiar. It was the same smell from that day at school. It seems Ji Ran had already become an Omega long ago but had been hiding it from him. He grabbed Ji Ran's arm. Ji Ran, stop. Gan Rui took a deep breath. This is Ji Ran. How could he be in his heat? If Ji Ran turns into an Omega and Yi Linghan marks him, then all my plans will be ruined. Gan Rui hurriedly stepped forward. Young Master Yi, you've mistaken the person. This Omega already has a partner. Let's go back quickly. Father is already urging us. Yi Linghan turned a deaf ear to his words, his gaze fixed on the tall figure ahead. He couldn't be mistaken. That was Ji Ran. Ji Ran was also hopeful that Yi Linghan was just testing him. As long as he walked out the door, he could escape to a place where Yi Linghan could never find him. But his hand was forcefully grasped, and Yi Linghan's voice landed heavily on his back. Did I allow you to leave? Then Yi Linghan released his pheromones. Ji Ran's breathing became rapid, his body started to weaken, and he was nearly unable to hold on. Rong Cheng pushed Yi Linghan away forcefully. Sir, please let go. He's my boyfriend. Please show some respect. Yi Linghan's face behind the mask was expressionless, But his eyes exposed outside the mask were fierce. He gritted his teeth and said, "Your boyfriend?" Yi Linghan was about to mark Ji Ran. Could Ji Ran escape this time? At this moment, Yi Linghan was drawing closer to Ji Ran. The strong pheromones made Ji Ran tremble all over. Rong Cheng stood in front of Ji Ran. "Sir, he is my boyfriend. Please show some respect." These words clearly angered Yi Linghan, who threw a punch at Rong Cheng. Rong Cheng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Then he pushed Ji Ran into the resting room, locked the door from the inside, and escaped through the window. Yi Linghan, watching their interaction, became even more furious. "You two are really putting on a show for me." Ji Ran knew all too well how ruthless Yi Linghan could be. He kept knocking on the door, asking Rong Cheng to open it. Rong Cheng stood his ground, watching Yi Linghan. Yi Linghan coldly said, "You dare to touch my man. Ji Ran is mine, no one else is allowed to touch him." He kicked Rong Cheng repeatedly. Blood spilled from Rong Cheng's mouth, but he clenched his teeth and didn't make a sound. Ji Ran stood behind the door. These past few days, Rong Cheng had been taking care of him. He had pulled him back from the brink of death. He couldn't get Rong Cheng involved. He couldn't let Yi Linghan hurt him. Ji Ran charged and opened the door. Yi Linghan looked straight at him, as if looking at prey. "You finally came out." At this moment, Ji Ran was emitting a strong omega pheromone. "Our issue has nothing to do with Rong Cheng. Let him go," said Ji Ran. Gan Rui sensed trouble. "Master Yi, Master Ji's body must be uncomfortable now. The suppressant should be." Yi Linghan cut him off. "No need." He approached Ji Ran. Ran, "I finally found you." He pushed Ji Ran into the lounge with a shove. The door slammed shut, and Ji Ran's heart jolted. Could it be marking? To become a caged canary once more? He couldn't live that life again. Ji Ran kept retreating. "I won't let you mark me." "Yi Linghan, give up on your foolish dreams." Yi Linghan held Ji Ran tightly. Even with his strong composure, he was now breathing in disarray due to Ji Ran's pheromones. Suddenly, the door burst open. A group of alphas scrambled to squeeze into the lounge. Yi Linghan found them extremely annoying. Ran, wait for me." He stood up, "I dare anybody to try," and threw a punch at an alpha beside him. The scene became chaotic instantly. Ji Ran wanted to find Rong Cheng to take him away. At that moment, Gan Rui suddenly grabbed him. "Here's your suppressant. If you don't want to be marked, leave through the window now." Ji Ran hesitated. But what about Rong Cheng if he left? Gan Rui seemed to guess his thoughts. The Rong family in Kyoto may not be as influential as the Yi family, but they are not to be trifled with. Ji Ran knew that if he didn't leave now, he would never have another chance. So, he pushed open the window, flipped over, and leapt down. Gan Rui smiled at the deep night, unaware that Yi Linghan was approaching him. He suddenly grabbed Gan Rui's mouth. "Where is he?" Gan Rui faltered. "He has escaped." Yi Linghan flung him away. "Stop trying to be clever in front of me." Walking to the window, Yi Linghan sighed. There wasn't even a trace of pheromones outside the window. "It seems Ji Ran has been gone for a while. Even if he flees to the ends of the earth, I must bring Ji Ran back." Last episode, Ji Ran suddenly entered his sensitive period, and was about to be marked by Yi Linghan when he escaped, thanks to Gan Rui's ulterior motives. Yi Yunping's face was livid. "For a Ji Ran, you're willing to turn Kyoto upside down. I won't agree to let him enter the Yi family. There can only be one Mrs. Yi, and that's Gan Rui." Yi Linghan was somewhat impatient.